show. We clash momentarily for class solidarity. Cash circulating, give the masses back its currency. Greed from a leech, oligarchs stay fed. Deep state, faith fed, everybody break bread. Racism, homophobia, sexism, religion in this melting pot we live in. Time to build a new system, unionize labor rights. Highlight the issue, talking heads left is best. The saga continues. The Nomiki Show.
Hello, and welcome to TNS Live, a special TNS Live. I'm very excited to have our dear friend today, Harvey Kaye, Professor Harvey Kaye, here for our one of our extended conversations at TNS Live, where we sit down with some of the greats and talk about some important issues. Professor Harvey Kaye is a professor emeritus of democracy at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay, and he is the author of Thomas Paine and the Promise of America, Fight for Four Freedoms, Take Hold of Our History, and FDR on Democracy. How are you, Harvey?
I'm okay. My voice is a little scratchy. Maybe I don't know if I ate something that, cut into it, or the fact that we have the weirdest weather going out here in Wisconsin. Although I guess everyone's got weird weather these days, but when we're not windy, we're cold. When we're not cold, it's raining, and sometimes we get all three of those together. Today is sunny, but it is windy. So, but I wanted to tell you, I don't know if you realize, my voice does sound a bit scratchy, doesn't it? Sorry about that.
You sound good.
I was looking. We're in the range of, this would be like a 2-year anniversary of our first time doing a show together. And it might have been March or earlier, but this could be around the time of the first one, where we, in the pandemic, I guess it was the onset of the pandemic, really. And then the other thing, and I hope you don't mind the tweet I sent out saying it had been a while since we spoke, and thus I asked people, should I chastise you or not? I was, of course, you knew that was just as an affectionate question, not a serious one.
Well, part of the reason we haven't been talking so much is because I got like 6 jobs, and they're taking up my life a little bit and wearing me down. Takes a toll. So, I mean, part of it is like we have the TNS Live. This is our last one we're doing for now, at least, taking a little bit of a break just because it's there's too much, and it's very heavy dealing with all the news going on right now. So,
No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's tempting.
What they say, like, do what makes you light up. And I was like, I haven't talked to Harvey in so long. I love having conversations with you. Sometimes I feel hopeful after, sometimes I don't, but I always feel better in some way or form.
Well, right now I'm anxious. That's a good way of putting it. I'm anxious because this winter spring has been in some ways rather exciting, because the project that I've been so deeply involved in, both with Alan Minsky, originally with the Gravel people creating the video on the FDR's Economic Bill of Rights, then with Alan Minsky, the executive director of Progressive Democrats of America, of creating a manifesto for a 21st century Economic Bill of Rights. But then along the way, between those two moments, that Nina Turner reached out to me and to talk about how does one actually articulate a narrative that projects the Economic Bill of Rights, not simply as, if you like, an outgrowth of the FDR presidency, but something that's been very central in many ways to the progressive project, both in terms of white and black and other Americans. And it's just been really, really exciting. And the reason I'm anxious, however, is this Tuesday is the primary in Ohio that will determine who the nominee for Congress Democratic nominee for Congress from Cleveland will be. And there have been no polls indicating one way or the other, because in part, it wasn't clear that the primary would actually take place in the beginning of May. Half the primaries in Ohio have been moved to a later time. The state offices have been moved. So I'm
kind of redistricting. Just for folks to understand, there's been all over. There's been challenges over lines that have been drawn. So
right. So that's my anxieties emerge from who knows what's going to happen. And I'll just say, I mean, I do believe, I say this in all seriousness, that for all of the progressives who are running this year, and I hope for victories in as many as, well, in all cases, obviously. But I do think that the most crucial of these primaries is the one in Ohio. It's because I think
I'm
that
gonna
given,
disagree with you for a second because there's an effect that's happening that's not good. But I'll tell you about it.
okay,
Well, because when you focus on one congressional candidate, all the money flows that way. Every single candidate I'm talking to that's running in really like their district. I talked to somebody yesterday. Don't forget, I work with Matriarch, and they're really struggling to raise money because everyone's saying this is the most important race. It's not. I mean, I love Nina, obviously, but it's not. We need as many progressives as possible. We can't just have one that comes in.
we do. And the only reason I'll counter that, because I really do appreciate what you're saying, is that the corporate Democrats are dumping once again hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million, $2 million, who knows how many dollars, into this last minute drive to keep her from winning in that district.
But they're doing that with everybody, Harvey, is what I'm trying to say. It's not
I guess
just
they've got
her.
all that. Yeah, I guess
I
they've
mean,
got all that money.
I really, because I'm speaking more to the audience right now that, Nina Turner's not having a problem raising money right now. She's not. So when people say I'm giving all my, I've heard candidates say I'm giving all my money to Nina, I'm giving all my money to whatever. And it's like, how about, there's 100 candidates across the country running and they're not raising money the way they used to because number one, it's not a presidential year where it's like everyone's paying more attention. And also the way that the algorithms are working now, people aren't able to buy ads on Facebook and have the same response. Buy ads in different other social media and have the same response to raise money. Texting isn't working the same way anymore because people are just being inundated. Same thing with people are doing call time. It's the only way to raise money now. And people are hanging up the phone saying, I'm done. I don't want any more. Like I'm giving my money to one person. And that we've got to change that culture because that's what the Democrats do. They say, put it all into the presidency. Who cares about the rest? So, I'm just saying that because, there's a lot of money being poured around the country against candidates, whether it's, Amy Villela or, Cori Bush has a primary challenger now.
Many of these people I ardently support, but unfortunately I don't have the money to support them all. In fact, I don't have the money to support anyone with a lot of money. Yeah. Let's make that clear. My aspiration is that somebody with a very, very strong voice joins not only to enlarge the Progressive Caucus is so vague on so much of this stuff. Exactly. I've had some run-ins with members of the Progressive Caucus recently, but I won't go there.
No, but I do want to actually talk about the Progressive Caucus with you if you're down. We don't have to talk about the
run-ins. I'm happy to do that. I am happy to do that. And I might even tell a story which won't include a name because I don't want to continue that fight. It's a waste of my time.
Luckily, there are so many members of the Progressive Caucus. It would be probably hard for us to figure out who it is. No, I hear you. I mean, we do need strong voices in Congress, but I've come off of a week of working with candidates and helping them. It's redistricting has really affected progressive races this year, and in New York, they're challenging the maps now. We don't even know some of the maps. All the congressional maps because they went to the Supreme Court and not the New York State Supreme Court. Right. And they're not, you can't appeal it. So they have to go back and redraw them and they might have to change the primary date. That's in New York. So, if New York's having this issue and Georgia was and everywhere, around the country, Ohio, of course, there have been issues with this as well as redistricting just occurring and giving everybody a late start because a lot of folks did not know, is it safe for me to run? I'm going to start raising money, but it's still kind of hard because people respond and say, well, you don't know what the district lines look like. Call me after you get the district lines. And at that point, you're behind on fundraising. Yeah. So for Matriarch, I can only speak of my experience there where, we announced our endorsements way later than we probably would. Definitely would have in the past. And there's a lot of catching up and the energy in the air right now with a lot of progressive candidates, women, it's just such an uphill battle because now there's a race to raise enough money to compete. And it's not like some of them didn't know what the lines were going to look like, but the temperature, the appetite in the progressive community is really not what it was
Yeah.
2 years ago, 4 years ago.
Right. Yes, I do
Yeah.
understand that. I actually have without getting into what we will eventually get into, I do want to recount a story that involves the Nomiki show regarding where I am now committed here in Wisconsin. Okay, and I've been meaning to talk to you about this. I thought you'd find it entertaining. So I believe it was sometime last summer that you had on somebody who was working with Tom Nelson here in Wisconsin, Jordan.
Jordan Zakarin. Yep.
Right. And I guess what happened was that he contacted me either by way of the chat afterward, I can't remember, or by way of an email. And he said, you really should endorse Tom Nelson. He's the progressive in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
I've known Tom for quite a while, but I had assumed wrongly, in fact, that the progressive running for Senate, this is in the Senate campaign, U.S. Senate campaign. There are 4 major candidates, I'll quickly say. So it's Mandela Barnes, who's lieutenant governor, Alex Lasry, who is the son of the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, and then there's a third candidate is Sarah Godlewski, who has been secretary treasurer at the state level, not for the party. This is the treasurer, I guess, of the state of Wisconsin. And I didn't cross my mind that Godlewski would be the progressive candidate, whatever. Okay. But I hesitated because here in Wisconsin, something related to the project I've worked on for so many months and if not years, the idea is that, and you've had on Christina and Francesca, I guess a couple of years ago, they were launching and have launched and relaunched with support a Wisconsin Economic Justice Bill of Rights. So when Jordan said that, I said to him, well, I'll tell you what, if Nelson embraces the Wisconsin Economic Justice Bill of Rights, he's got my endorsement. By the way, I want to be clear to everyone. I don't know what my endorsement means in terms of votes, but people seem to think it matters in some fashion. So so he didn't. Nelson did not at that time. And months went by, and I was really thinking, well, who are these candidates? And I thought, well, Mandela Barnes, he's lieutenant governor, and he's from Milwaukee, and he talks about in his family, the labor background. And it was inclined, and I actually think I sent, like $25 just at the outset. And somebody called to my attention that Mandela Barnes, if you look on his website, there's nothing of a progressive agenda there at all.
Yeah.
And presumably the Democratic consultants have urged, from DC have urged him not to come across as too progressive, whatever. So I waited. And then I guess a couple of months ago, I tweeted and I put all their names, the 4 candidates with their, Twitter handles. And I said, let's see who the real progressive in Wisconsin is. And the only one who immediately jumped to embrace it was Tom Nelson, which I found great. And I followed up on my promise to Jordan, who by this time has left that campaign, I think, and gone somewhere else. And I told Tom we would meet and I would endorse him. And I have, and I'm very happy about it. He is not running in the top 2. He's running down towards the bottom, but he is the actual progressive in the state of Wisconsin. So if people are looking for the progressive in Wisconsin to support, I urge people to support Nelson. It's not that Mandela Barnes is a bad candidate or Alex Lasry is a bad candidate. It's that if you want a progressive to go to Washington, support Tom Nelson. So
when is the primary for Wisconsin?
Well, it's not going to, in this state, it doesn't come up till August. So it's a ways to go. And there has been movement in terms of the polling has begun and there is movement there. But it's mostly movement between the top 2 right now. So,
yeah.
But I'll stick to my candidate because it's important that progressives be supported in primaries and that we win as many of those
Totally.
primary elections as possible. Anyhow, so that's a Nomiki show story. And
cool. And Jordan has a great thing called Progressives Everywhere. He still runs it. He's over at More Perfect Union, the media site that does a lot of union stuff now. It's pretty awesome. So go check him out there. He's on the show all the time, so I think folks are familiar.
Yeah, I keep meaning to send him a note that the follow through occurred, and there you go.
So before we take a quick break, let's tease the Progressive Caucus and what let's I don't people throw out these terms. I don't know how many folks really understand how things are structured. So before we go into like the Progressive Caucus and what's going on over there and the deal making and how the sausage is made, um, what does it mean to be part of the Progressive Caucus in Congress under Nancy
Well,
Pelosi?
as I understand it, it's your request to be in it. I mean, I don't know if there's anything more to it than that, frankly. You say I'm a progressive, but of course, so would I'm surprised that Nancy Pelosi hasn't requested to be a member.
I mean, honestly, she's more progressive in terms of votes on paper than some of the Progressive Caucus members.
I have,
I just
yeah,
had to do a whole assessment of Nancy Pelosi for something, and
yeah,
you would be surprised. I mean, she's the anti-war. I'm not. Listen, I want to be clear before
yeah,
people come after me. I'm not like
right, yeah.
defending her,
You know,
but compared to some people,
You'll be in the next campaign video, by the way.
Nancy Pelosi against war.
Well, I confess that after 2018, when the Democrats retook the House, if I got my dates right, 2018, right? And I was asked to join the Nancy Pelosi team, okay, on Twitter, as a sort of direct messaging group. And my inclination at that moment, because I thought at that moment the best thing would be that the Democrats not have an internecine struggle, that the squads should just take off and see what happens from there. And but what happened is, even in the discussion in that team, I thought there were people who were absolutely hostile to the real progressives in Congress and literally went after Bernie Sanders in there.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't be a part of this kind of stuff. So I left. And in any case, I would not have stayed given what's transpired. But yeah, this is the.
So we're
the
showing
crew,
this is actually really good because keep going down if you can. Okay, so we have the chair of the Progressive Caucus is, of course, Pramila Jayapal, and the deputy chair is Katie Porter. The whip is Ilhan Omar, and the chair, I don't even know, what does that even mean? Like, they're still in Congress. How can they be in
as a professor emeritus, I can tell you what it means is that you are formerly, but you are honored with the title emeriti.
Got it.
Emeritus. And
so
there
Raul
you go.
Grijalva from Tucson, Southern Arizona, Barbara Lee from California, Southern California, and Mark Pocan, of course, from your home state. And then you've got these vice chairs. So this is where it gets juicy. I like this part. So you keep going. Marie Newman, okay, progressive. Sheila Jackson Lee, of course. Joe, I don't know who that is. People always will message me something and say, "Don't you know anything about this guy?" I'm like, I don't know. There's so many Congress members. All right, most of these people are progressive, but then you keep going down.
This is funny. You know what? As long as we're here, I just want you to know that I reached out to Chewy, to Representative Garcia, on a direct message, because his team was constantly asking me to retweet his stuff, which I was doing. And so I sent back and I said, well, I'd like to talk to the congressman about the Economic Bill of Rights. And his press secretary contacted me and said, I'm going to refer you to the campaign committee that I'm sure they'll be in touch. Well, that was weeks ago. And I reminded
that's because
him.
of the firewall. Let's just be clear. That's not because
I'm not. By the way, I didn't mind being referred to anywhere as long as I was going to get access to a conversation with the congressman. And the campaign team never got back to me. And I'm just saying, look, I'm not the most important person that I expect everyone responds to these things. However, when I'm speaking, not as an officer, but on behalf of a project that has been endorsed by the Progressive Democrats of America, I expect a progressive member of the caucus to say at least, well, let's talk,
This is quite I love how they set this all up. You know what they say, if you want something to go die, put it through a process. I'm like, there's so many executive board members.
This is very educational. This is educational to me because I actually never looked at the full list.
Okay. Me either. Jane Jakowski, she's not bad. The Senate member, but there's still some people that are missing from here that I know. Oh, House members. Here we go. All right.
These are the folks without any kind of official title.
Yeah, because they're not really. Some of them are not really progressive.
Karen Bass, who might well have been a candidate for vice president,
and is now running for mayor, I believe, of Los Angeles.
Here
Here we go. Chantel Brown is in the Progressive Caucus. So the Progressive Caucus is now serves as cover. So, this is interesting. It's like when people sign on to Medicare for All, but
Yes.
Medicare for All is not really up. I mean, Peter DeFazio, are you kidding me? Come on. Like,
The token. They do it as a gesture. Confident
yes.
that
Ruben Gallego. Here's one. Ruben Gallego never met a PAC check he doesn't like, is siding with the statehood party in Puerto Rico, which is a racist,
Arizona better than any
homophobic,
of us. Arizona
and Puerto Rico. He's a stateholder for Puerto Rico, which is just like mind-boggling. Like, how could you do that? It's the right
How
wing
about
party.
Hakeem Jeffries? Isn't that an exciting member?
He's the future speaker, of course.
Speaker of the House. Yeah.
Yeah, this
if by the way, he's future Speaker of the House if the progressive don't have their way, which they probably won't.
Let's be real. Don't. All right, some of these. Zoe Lofgren.
Wait, go back up. This is alphabetical, right?
This is fun. Sorry, guys. This is just
I'm a little confused. I could have sworn Andy Levin was a member.
He is. He's at the top.
He was one of the.
So these are like the people that are not exactly. Andy Levin.
Andy Levin is one of the, to my mind, one of the really good. He's the best labor one. Period.
Well, he was in the running to be labor secretary, right?
Yes, right, exactly. Yeah, and that would have been a better choice for progressives than Walsh. No matter what people may think, believe me.
Tell us while we're going through this list.
Well, Walsh is, in the labor movement, there are different sectors of the labor movement. And historically, it would have been the divide between the trades, plumbers, carpenters, and so on, versus the industrial workers. This comes out of the 30s. And that divide was so intense in the 30s that basically those who were in the trades, those unions, which goes all the way back to Gompers, who was a cigar maker, they basically threw out the industrial unions in the 30s, or at least nudged them out. And thus the Congress of Industrial Organizations was created, of the United Mine Workers, the Amalgamated Clothing Workers, the ILGWU, International Ladies Garment Workers Union, and so on. And it wasn't until 1955, I think it was, that the two federations joined up again together. But historically, it is the case that industrial unions have been more progressive and opened up to multiracial unionism prior to any of the trades had done so. Okay.
Interesting.
So Walsh, my understanding of Walsh's labor ties is they come out of they're in the trades. By the way, so is Liz Schuler. She comes out of the president of the AFL-CIO. But now in the course of the last, I don't know, several decades from before when you were born, there's this other sector that has emerged. Of course, that's the service sector. Okay, that would be, janitors and so on and so forth. So, and then of course there are the public employee unions like the postal workers and the American Federation of Teachers, which goes back, but became all the more important during the 60s and 70s. And AFSCME, of course, is public sector. But the thing is that historically, the trades were more conservative. In the 1930s, the trades unions didn't know what to do when FDR signed the National Industrial Recovery Act, which authorized workers to organize. That was in 1933. Later, they passed the more significant, the more effective National Labor Relations Act. But millions of workers wanted into the AFL by way of their local, they were creating their own locals. But the trades said, oh, no. You're not ready. You can organize, but we're not going to necessarily bring you in as full-scale unions. And by the way, that was ethnic. Is there some ethnic? We have the term racism. This was in essence, it was like racism, because those unions generally were filled with Eastern and Southern European workers, and the older trades unions saw those folks as not up to par with their own classically white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Can I ask you one question? Just in those trade unions, was the leadership rank and file? Was that
Well,
eventually
they
to be
were
done as it is
organized.
now?
There was a lot of the organizing was really grassroots, which is, it's interesting you point that out. I mean, it happened so fast. At first, the argument was, well, this is happening so fast, we can't cope with it. But then it became pretty clear that it really had to do with the question of ethnicity and race. And by the way, the proof of that was that what they created was, they called them federal unions, which was a nice sounding thing, but they weren't fully a part of the AFL-CIO. They didn't have the same standing. Okay. And then as the industrial unions emerged, mine workers being the first really to fully integrate, racially speaking. But then the others too. I mean, seriously, the CIO was organized in good part by left organizers, as well as the sort of spontaneous organizing that took place. So anyhow, so what's happened, and then there's another irony, because the industrial union secured really significant contracts around 1950, after World War II, which included health coverage. Then they continued to support the idea of national health care, which was always a union demand. But the AFL unions, which were the more conservative, they stuck more to the call for healthcare because they operated on a completely different set of, contracts and temporary arrangements. Now, if we come to the present, Andy Levin, he's out of Michigan. His family's ties in labor, which go quite a ways back, were in industrial unions. So when Biden was choosing, I definitely rejected that Bernie should have become Secretary of Labor. Talk about waste of talent.
We talked about that one for a while.
Okay. But Andy Levin was
it's like sending someone to go be ambassador to Japan.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, listen, they're not rewarding him. They're sending him away, you idiots.
Right.
They're like, Rahm Emanuel should not be an ambassador. I'm like, they don't want him around. They're like, where's the furthest place?
That's
Siberia?
right. Don't fight it. Send him to East Asia. Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay. So,
I read my history.
And the progressives, the true progressives in the labor movement, leaders who I know, they all wanted Levin, and they all applauded Walsh when he came on, but it would have. They needed somebody who was going to be all the more aggressive.
Exactly. He won't be nefarious. He just won't be as aggressive. We're going to take a quick break, continuing this conversation with the one and only Professor Harvey Kaye. Meet us over at rockfin.com/Nomiki. Make sure to like and subscribe on all the places. We also have our podcast out everywhere. And then when you join us at Rockfin, make sure to do all the things you need to do to show your love at Rockfin. Like and subscribe and, share and all the things the kids have been doing for the last 20 years. All right. We'll be right back after this quick little break.